here's the big benefit of plant medicine for me was I was immediately shown what was possible in terms of connecting.
Yes.
Now the trick is, can you go do that yourself, right?
Yeah.
Some version of that yourself. That's where the meditation comes in. The commonality of anyone who can talk to spirit without being on a plant medicine is meditation. So
Yes.
people think they can't do it. No, you're just not meditating. That's the integration part. You're running the miles. You're doing the work
Gotcha. Yes.
with the
Yes.
meditation.
Tracking. Yes.
Because I've seen some people going, but it's awesome. I'm a better person. You're not. You had a great experience. The work has just begun. It's
Yeah.
like marriage, right? I love you. I'm going to spend the rest of my days with you. This is awesome. I said I do. You just signed up for a shit ton of work. You're going to get to know yourself in ways you never even imagined.
Yeah.
So the commitment to the meditation for me eventually led to the animals. The days that I talked to the animals, those are the game days for me.
I resonate with that because the reason why I was able to connect more deeply with my cats, it became after I started to turn inward, spend time communing with my divine being and just who I am outside of the vessel. Well, hey there, and welcome back to Fire and Soul, the space to awaken your divine power and further activate your inner awakening. And I'm really excited for today's conversation. It's really personal to me, and I imagine if it's personal to me, it will be personal to many of you, if not, certainly intrigue some curiosity for your continued expansion in all the ways in which we are awakening collectively and individually. And many of you guys know that I tend to, choose my guests, hand select people that I know or that I know of or that I've learned from and inspired by. But when Nick reached out, the timing was really auspicious. And the reason I say that is because I had just started my journey with a sacred plant medicine known as San Pedro, and we're going to talk about that today. I had started my journey in late November of 24, and I am working with it as a microdose almost every day, and it has completely changed my life. And I've had two journeys, one full Sen, one very light, and again, just put me back into my heart. It's known as the bridge to the divine, as far as I know it. But our guest is going to speak more about that. And it's been so profound for me. And then, of course, you all know my love for my animals, my fur babies. I have Samson, who's almost 8 years old. He's my spirit pup. We've been together many lifetimes. I know this. He is the gift for me in this life. He's so easy, and it's just such a joy to spend time with him. And then my two kitty cats, who are 13, Leo and Pip. So when we discuss San Pedro and then how that led to his ability to communicate with animals, I was like, wait, are you hanging around in my life? So that is what I drop into today. The beauty of plant medicine, known as San Pedro and many other names, as well as how to communicate with your animals at home. So he's a plant medicine enthusiast and a psychic animal communicator. He had his first psychic and psychedelic experiences in his early 20s. It took over 25 years for those kinds of experiences to resurface again. In fact, much of it was what most people would call normal. That changed when Nick started exploring consciousness with plant medicine and a spiritual teacher. A connection opened that continued to grow and evolve. He went to a psychic medium who told him he would communicate with animals and it would be easy. After a few false starts, she was right. Now, Nick communicates with other people's animals and helps people develop their own intuitive gifts. And you can find more about Nick if you enjoy this conversation and find it useful at mycatssschooledme.com. And Nick, I'm remiss that I don't know how to pronounce your last name, but welcome to Fire and Soul. And how do you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. It's Musica,
Just like it said, just like it looks. Okay,
just
fantastic.
like it looks. Yep.
So this is so cool that you're here. I'm really glad that you reached out because it did feel quite meant to be, and you didn't know that bit of the backstory and context, but please share with us where you started in your San Pedro journey. How old were you? And what was that experience like when you were first introduced to it? And maybe actually it might be useful to then share what San Pedro is to you and how you explain it to others.
Yeah, yeah, great. Thank you. So I was introduced to San Pedro in 2017. I guess I was mid 40s. And the conversation sounded like this. A buddy of mine calls me up and he says, "So you're going to come with me on Saturday, right?" And I said, I don't know what you're talking about. He said, we talked about this. You said that you agreed if my guests couldn't make it, because I got two seats for this San Pedro ceremony, that if they couldn't make it, then you would show up. I have no clue what you're talking about. And I was like, tell me about the San Pedro thing. And starts to, talk about, mystical experiences, spiritual experiences, talk to God. And I'm like, I have no recollection. And also, like, this is sounding like I don't know if I want to be involved in this thing. Um, and at the end of the conversation, I remember him saying, just go, you'll like it.
Mm.
Okay. So I tell my wife, I'm going to be gone all day Saturday. Well, what do you mean? Where are you going? I'm going to go with a buddy. And it's well, what is all day? 8 o'clock until like 8 o'clock, like
Right.
12
8
hours.
a.m. Yes.
Right. All so when you say all day, yeah, yeah. And what is this about? And so I mumble, or I muddle through what it's about. And she's like, I'm like, I don't know. Like, like we both love and trust this individual. And so I feel comfortable with it. So I'm gonna go. And so I went. But before I go, I'm going on Google like everyone else. I'm like, what is San Pedro? And I'm seeing very similar language, spiritual expansion, talk to God, um, all that type of language. And so I had, like you said, I had some experiences in my early 20s, but it was experimental. Right? I mean, the best worst example is buying way too many mushrooms at a dead show and eating them out of the plastic bag. And a
Mhm.
buddy of mine looking at me 20 minutes later, looking at the bag, going, "You ate all those yourself?" Uh-huh. Well, you weren't. Well, you shouldn't have. Well, no one told me. I had no idea what I was doing. It was not a
Oh,
great dead show, right?
well.
So I was comfortable with the chemicals, but the context was um, different. It was just different. So I get there and I'm asking like everyone, like, why is everyone here? Because I'm trying to figure out why I'm there, right?
Mhm.
And they're just parroting back what I already said. And I remember one woman saying, "Well, if you had a chance to talk to God, wouldn't you want to be here?" And I'm like, "I am here." Also, I don't know what I'm doing here, right?
Mhm.
So we all get called into this room. There's like 20 or 30 of us, and and everyone gives their intention. I'm here because reason,
Mhm.
um, and then everyone drinks San Pedro, which in this context was, if you can imagine a cactus or a succulent, what like they're sort of the same thing. Um, but it's dehydrated
Mhm.
and then it's put like into a solo cup, right? Like a frap boy cup, right?
Mhm.
And water goes in and then you're drinking it.
Like a
And it
tea.
is, oh man, a tea is a really lovely way to phrase it.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
doesn't taste that great.
Does not taste great, right? And your body can have a reaction to it, right? So for the first 45 minutes, you're like, keep it down.
Mhm.
Keep it in your body.
Mhm.
After you're past 45 minutes, it's doing its thing in your body, right? But
Mhm.
45 minutes, that's critical.
Mhm.
Or else the whole day is gone,
Right.
right? Or you better do it again. And I've never been in this situation, but I would not want to drink something again if I let it out the first time, right? That doesn't does not set you up for success, right? So everyone's drinking, and here's the funny thing about this cactus, or I imagine any cactus, is once you add water to it, this dehydrated part, it sort of wants to come back into a cactus,
Mhm.
right? But the closest it's going to get is some form of like a gummy worm that's been stuck in your car on a hot day in a plastic cup, right? And you do not want to drink that. So you want to get it down as best as possible in the best result, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of the day, right? So I'm like, what did I get myself into? Like this, whatever. And then about 3 hours later, all the chit chat just gets quiet. And you recognize first, at least I did, you recognize it out there first, and then you're recognizing it internally that I'm feeling quiet too, right? And then all of a sudden, I mean, it is like clear as day. It is a direct line to whatever you want to call the direct line, wherever you want, the ultimate, um, whatever source, God. I mean, choose the label that you're comfortable using.
Mhm.
But there's a direct line to something. And
Mhm.
when I tell people this, I make the assumption that they have a starting point where they can hear what I say the first time, and most people don't. And I typically say, and there's a guide there, and they go, "Oh, good, there's a person walking around." Well, that's true, but that's not what I mean. There is something hand holding you the entire time,
Mm.
to the point of like you feel. I felt like it's right over there. It's so close, and there's this interaction, telepathic, however you want to phrase it. But you hear things, you see things. There's a call and response. Um, it is, it's a super cool experience. I love it. I'm a big fan of it.
Yeah, same. How is your relationship with nature? Were you out? This is why they recommend that you do it in the morning, that you're outside, preferably if the weather permits, and of course, seasonal time of the
Yeah,
year. But I
yeah,
mean, yeah, nature will begin to that could also be, interpreted as God in the communication.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I've done it. I've done it inside in a room and was fine, and I've done it outside the entire time. Um, with nice weather, with downpour in a downpour once, and I prepared for it, and so I was fine. But it is, I for someone who really had no clue of what they were getting into, I made it a regular rhythm every 6 to 12 months. I spent time with the cactus, so I'm probably two full hands at this point, 10 times ish, spending time with
Man,
him.
what would you say it feels like when it's beginning to activate within your system? And what do you know San Pedro to be? So you mentioned that it's like the voice of God, or however someone refers to this higher consciousness, most high type thing.
Yeah.
But what is your understanding of what it is? Just like what you saw on Google.
You know, there is such a huge difference between knowing something academically and experiencing something.
Mhm.
And anything you read about, I think just doesn't do it justice. I mean, you can read about skydiving, right? And the adrenaline rush and the fears and the smelling the diesel fuel as you circle up to your destination to when you jump out. But until you're breathing in that diesel fuel, until you have 1 foot out the door and the instruction is you do not hesitate, you go, right?
That's
Until you have that experience, you're just reading a book.
that's right. Yeah, really well said. As someone who has gone skydiving once and only once, and we were, I believe our height was 15,000 feet, might have been 30. I know that's a big distinction, but it was one or the other, and it was everything you just described. And it just seems so easy. Of course, we're all going to do it for one of our girlfriend's 30th birthday. And it was like every one of us practically wanted to poop our pants. I mean, it was terrifying. And then it was, the most exhilarating thing that we had ever done, but there was no way that you could possibly, experience that based on what you're reading. But from what I know about San Pedro, and I'd love to know if you know anything different. This would be sort of more academic, and it's that it's the grandfather of all sacred plant
Yeah,
medicines.
that's right.
And so ayahuasca is known as the grandmother. And so the grandfather, and it's a cactus, and it's grown in many places around the world, but some would say um, South America is where you're going to find the best. I know that the cactus that I work with, San Pedro, it's from Peru. And it's also has many names. Wachuma, Achuma. I think Temescal is also another name that it goes by. San Pedro, which is what I say. And I had heard not that you would connect with the voice of God, which is really cool, but I experienced that for sure. Through the sun, actually, through the sun.
Hmm.
It was the most incredible thing. And also through our matriarch tree here in my backyard. And it was just beyond beautiful. Um, God was coming through the sun. There were other messages for me that were not necessarily God, but all God related, if that makes sense. But this was known, I had been told, like as a heart opener and a bridge to the divine. And so all
Hmm.
of that would work with what you offered too. But yeah, really, really specifically, I'll share one thing just because I did a full send. I was on 22 grams and we made a tea. So we were doing 5 to 6 grams every hour and a half. for like the first 5 hours of our day. And so by like 1 or 2 p.m., we were now just journeying. And that's what felt most right to us is we all decided set and setting. Do we want to go all in at once or do we want to layer? And we all decided we wanted to layer. And so, and then we just journeyed up until like basically midnight, you know. So it was a
Mm.
very long, beautiful, full day. And and the fires in Los Angeles, which as you know, it's where I'm from. I lived there for over 30 years, and the fires had just they were still going. The fire started, I believe, on January 6, 2025, and this was January 11th, so 111, and we deliberately chose that Saturday. And so what the Son, God, shared with me so clearly is that all of my grief and all the devastation and all the destruction and just the trauma that so many people that I knew and loved were experiencing and how hard it felt to be, you know, thousands of miles away here in Texas, almost 2,000 miles away, and not being able to be there for them, but feeling it. And then me feeling like I was pretty clear on not just that it happened, the fires, but why they happened. So that was just this double compound of just so much, just grief. And, but the message that came through was everything is in divine unfoldment. Everything is perfect. Everything, even this. Yes, even this. And it was so gracious and it was so divine. It was so loving. It was so warm. And it felt like what I would imagine the hand of God, the voice of God, the energetics of God. It was just, I could just completely relax and surrender. And that day, truly, we're talking mid-March 2025, so more than a couple months later, it it changed me, you know?
Hmm.
So I share all that because if there's anything specific that you can share about your journey, I would love to hear any standout moment that really helped you understand more about yourself, meet yourself at some edges, and how it helped you heal parts that
Yeah,
were
yeah, sure. I
sustainable.
mean, um, I I've written a lot of them down. I mean, you come out with it, at least I have, just really clear about the messaging and what it is, and as much as you feel like you're in a whole nother world at the time. It's so concrete when you come out of it, you can just write it like it's a book, you know. Um, I mean, there was one time, and I sort of get like these movie clips frequently. Like it's this movie clip until it's done, and there's another movie clip, and then until it's done. And it could be totally different. One has nothing to do with the other, right? And there was one time where all of a sudden I'm just sort of at this bottom of a platform, and there's like this guy in like a black uniform with um like this control panel, and he just looks at me and he goes, "So what'd you do with your time?" Oh shit. Like, right?
Mm,
And my interpretation of it is, um, you better have something to good report on, right? You better have something worth talking about, uh,
mhm,
or or else what are you doing? What
mhm,
are you doing here, right?
mhm,
You're in body for a reason. So what'd you do with that body on this planet in this lifetime?
mhm,
Um, and I don't know if that was a general thing for me or more specific on anything, but it sure made an impression around like you better you better do something with the time that you have here.
mhm, mhm,
Uh, and that's not it's not all the things that we're told to do, you know, be a good student, go get a job, do the things, right? It has nothing to do with that. They may be vehicles for being kind to people and um, you know, practicing certain characteristics that you need to grow in yourself. Sure, they're all vehicles for something.
mhm.
But beyond that, this felt a little more meaningful and a little more purposeful. Which,
Yeah.
you know, looking back at it now, it's like, well, maybe the animals are part of that. Sure, yeah,
Mm,
um, right. Because there's a certain amount of, and I felt this for a while. There's a certain amount of, are you going to say it, and what are people going to think,
mhm, mm,
right?
mhm,
And that didn't feel good for a long time, but it felt worse to not say it, right?
mhm,
And so as the animals showed up for me, I had quite a few experiences with them, um, but I felt my emotional state going sort of spiraling down because I wasn't doing anything with it, and I also didn't know what to do with it. really.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then once I started to express it, like night and day, and then you get to a point where, and this is how it really started to move for me. I went on to Nextdoor, which is like a just as good slash bad version of Facebook, right? It's not people you know, it's neighbors
Mm-hmm.
you don't know, but a lot of the same conversations, right? And everyone very opinionated.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on there and I'm like, these animals have been showing up for me. Can I do this for someone else? No clue. So I went on, said, "Hi, my name is Nick Musica. I'm an animal communicator. That means I psychically talk to animals. Click here for free 15 minutes. Submit." And I thought, what did I just say? What did I just do? Right. And I'm watching the interactions, and it's sort of like it was back in, when Trump and Biden were um, doing their thing. And it sort of doesn't matter what your take is politically, but you could well imagine, like, Trump's the best, he's awful. Biden's the best, he's awful. And the comments that would come after it. No, he sucks. No, he's the best. Like, whatever. Like, it was just totally like, oh my God, what a mess. And this was the first time that I started this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because what's happening is he serious? Is this a thing? Oh yeah, it's a real thing. You should do it. Or and I start to see it because I felt the need to like jump in and like protect myself, right? And double down. And then I thought, let's just see this play out. Let's see what happens. So there's a certain amount of um, saying it, letting people self-select, and standing in your truth, and being okay with whatever happens after that. In retrospect, right, like trying to contextualize that message,
Mm-hmm.
what it could have been at a daily basis. It could have been because, there's Father's Joe's Village in San Diego that feeds the homeless, right? It could have been, volunteering there. It could have been doing something else. But a lot of things are clear in retrospect when you look in that rearview mirror. And for me, it's like this now in that context, there's no dash line. It's a direct connection to it. Yeah,
Okay, so that was the gift of that awareness of you could help a lot of people if you weren't afraid of what they might think of you, or what you might think of you is probably
that's
more
right.
accurate, right?
Yeah.
And so start somewhere, and you chose to start in next door. Okay. So, but I wasn't sure I was finished with San Pedro. So can we go
Yeah,
back
let's
there
go
for a
back. Yeah,
moment?
let's do
Because
it.
San Pedro is so special. And
Yeah.
so I would love to hear anything else that you would like to share about, like, what you know about what brings people to San Pedro, how it might be different than any other plant medicines that you've experienced. Because for me, it is so starkly different than the very few that I've worked with. And I haven't worked with a ton of plant medicines. In fact, I would say probably only three: sassafras, psilocybin, ayahuasca, and now San Pedro. So four total. But San Pedro is so different than those other three, just like
Yeah.
all plant medicines. But for people who aren't aware, what would you share about your experience of what brings people to these types of experiences, dosing, and then distinctions on different types?
Yeah. Okay. So the folks who I've seen show up are folks who are either in emotional pain for
Mm,
one reason or other. And when the talking stick gets handed around, people go, "Hi, my name is. I'm here for X, Y, and Z." And everyone's a little bit like, "Oh shit! Like, what's going to happen today?" Like, like there's this blend of excitement and also, "Oh man, like who knows what's going to show up?" type of feel, right? So there's a little bit of that going around. But there's people who will show up who just start breaking down, around what they're asking for
mm,
that day. So that's certainly, and I think it's folks who just like, maybe it's the first, maybe it's the 10th time, they hit the bottom. There's I saw a video of some gentleman, an actor, talking about his rock bottom. And he's like, and he said something like, and after 2 days of taking a bunch of pills and waking up 48 hours later, you would think that's the rock bottom. It wasn't. There's many rock bottoms, right? And so I can imagine, like, there's a lot of rock bottoms you have to hit before you actually act on it. And for these people to be there with other, 20, 30 people, and
mhm,
they're that emotional,
mhm,
I doubt that's the first rock bottom, right?
mhm.
Or they've been just extended in it for a while.
Mhm.
And so it's very healing for a lot of folks. You get to release a bunch of garbage that I'm not a therapist, so take this for with a big grain of salt. That therapy can't release. It's an energetic release. It's not talk therapy. Like
Mhm.
very simple messaging can show up, but it comes with such a high energetic signal
Yes.
that you could have told someone, you could have had a conversation with someone about the same exact thing a week prior. And then you come out of this experience and you say, oh my God, that was sort of like what we were talking about, but this. And they may look at you like, what's your problem? Like we talked about it for an hour. It doesn't have an energetic signal to it, right? There's an agenda of the human forcing it on the other human, but this is just clean and pure. And when it shows up, I mean, you could ignore it, but you'd be a real asshole from my perspective.
Yeah.
And it just lands without any amount of wondering if this is true or not. There's just a pure truth to it. And then you get to decide how you want to incorporate that in your life. And I would suggest that you do messy, non-messy, but go forward with something, right? So generally speaking, that's I think a lot of the experience coming out of it, and those are the type of people going to it. And I didn't go there for that. I went, I went there for I don't even know why. But almost like how you started the conversation of like, isn't it funny I got this email at this time in my life for this thing, right?
Mhm.
And coming out of it, I was like, maybe it took about 50 years to wake up, and now it's about figuring out what you do with that for the next 50,
Do you
right?
believe the medicine called you?
I don't know. I mean, probably. And I say that because some people do it once and they're like, got what I needed. And I'm like, I made a friend,
Oh
right?
gosh,
Like,
same.
I made a friend. I mean, people look at me like I'm crazy, and and they should. When I say, yeah, I do have a therapist. It's a cactus. It's a cactus, right?
Mhm.
Like, yeah, yeah. And if I want to go to a human, I would do that too if I felt that was the next
Mhm.
best route. But it is a very therapeutic time. But you know, in the context of psychedelics, there's folks who go to it for healing. You know, if there's this bar of emotional health, you know, there's folks who are under that bar for neutral emotional health where they go to it for that healing. And there's other folks who are above the bar who go to it for this enlightenment. Not to say you don't get one with the other. I think you do,
I do
but
too.
right, but there's definitely a line in the sand of
I think
working
so.
through a ton of emotional pain or not.
That was so interesting that that's where you shared that this is what your perspective of why people come to it because Lord knows I certainly have gone to other medicines for some healing, specifically a psilocybin journey. And there was an area of my life that I was really ready to heal and just get to the bottom of it. And it was such a beautiful experience and it gave me everything I could have hoped for. And it feels like it's been sustained. But San Pedro for me is it's the other side of that line that you just talked about. For me, it feels like it's an amplification of the divinity, of the blessings, of the abundance, of the joy, of the beauty and the grace of my life. And then anything that might want to come in that I was maybe not as present to, that was just kind of in the inner workings in the background of like, yes, the fires were going on, but I didn't feel like I was as traumatized by that until the message came through of like everything is in divine order. Everything is unfolding perfectly. And it was just this, and it's so hard for the egoic mind structure, someone who's in pain and struggling to hear that, right? But if you are in general, fundamental well-being is pretty good, you can just relax and trust into that. And it's like, okay, well, what else am I supposed to do? Like to argue against reality would just be insane and cause suffering.
Yeah,
So
that's
why don't
right.
I just trust that this has to be the case? And of course, I truly do believe that life is always happening for us and never ever to us. And with the benefit of hindsight, that's always much easier to see to your point earlier. But I would say for me, it's an amplification. And then the microdosing that I've been working with, which is 1 gram, about 5 days a week in the morning, it's just this little subtle, almost imperceptible sweetness that's it's a magical ally in my life. And so I'd be curious to know what is the dosing for you at this point when you're going in a couple times a year?
I have no idea. I see how much
Interesting.
I have no clue. Yeah, so people talk about like mushrooms are the big conversation that I've heard anyway around, and I couldn't even name how much or a unit of measurement. I'm like, I don't know what that means. I have no clue. And this chocolate bar, these thing, like, I don't, is that a lot or is, I have no clue. All I know is, and it's a little bit like the cannabis conversation, right? Like, um, it's like how strong is it? Well, you don't know until you know, right? And it may hit you differently than someone else. And it grows outside. It's not from a pharmacy, right? So there could be, take the bell-shaped curve, right? It's probably not on this 20%. It's not on this 20%, but also now we have 60% to play with, right? And that's sort of big. There's a big range there.
Yeah.
I have found that let's use bell-shaped curve again. I feel like in the beginning I was a little bit of San Pedro, and then I'm like, give me everything you got. And the more that I got sensitive to it, I'm like, it's more harsh on my body than it is insightful. So we can tailor it off, and I'm gonna get what I need with sort of the same amount I got as a newbie
Mhm.
now. I mean, I'll tell you this, like I show up to the events now, and like it's crazy. Like as soon as your intention is to show up, your name is in the book, right? In the book, the proverbial book. And things start to change and shift around you as you lead up to it.
That's right. The medicine is already working. It's
It's
awakening.
already kicking in. Yeah,
Yes,
already kicking in.
absolutely. The journey begins before the journey.
That's right. And I get to where I go. And usually, I mean, back in when I started, it was, I was knee deep in the experience and the clouds are doing a thing and the hill is expanding and contracting and, all the things you would see visually. But
Mhm.
now I show up and it's like 8 o'clock, 9 in the morning. For anyone listening, just to be really clear, no ingestion of medicine at all. But there is a whole lot of movement where there isn't for most people just getting there the first time. Things are moving and grooving. And I mean, going back to the experience with nature, like you don't see that in a concrete wall, but you do see it in the plants and the trees.
I've seen
Um,
it in the concrete wall. Yeah,
oh, you know what? I take that back. So have I. But it's different. It's different to show up someplace and like the earth is talking to you.
oh yeah, it's all a heartbeat. It's incredible. I
Yeah.
love that you say that because when it was the dead of winter, here, and what does that even mean? Like in Texas, we're not really getting like the winter, like the upper Northeast or something, but moving from California and having lived there basically my whole life and on the coast, we had a lot of perennial trees. So we didn't see like a
Mm,
classic fall of like, trees losing their leaves. But in the backyard of my house, there are a whole bunch of beautiful trees that, yes, they lose their leaves. And we had fall for exactly 2 weeks here in Austin, Texas. It happened in mid-December, in fact. So trees turned orange, red, and yellow, and then lost their leaves all within 2 weeks. And then we were in winter. So all the trees that were so full and lush and green and vibrant, and then all the colors was suddenly now barren. And it was a wild, wild, wild experience. And it was so beautiful because at one point I just felt really called to bow to our matriarch tree that's in the east. And it was very clear to me when I moved in that she would be the matriarch. But I also asked and I brought her a blessing and or an offering and and so this particular day, I was like on the grass, but with a blanket and just kind of looking at her. And it was kind of a chillier day to start. But she showed me what was happening on the inside of her and just how vibrant and
mm,
alive and noisy
mm.
and how just because I look like nothing is going on, doesn't mean that there isn't just like full intelligence and full vitality
Yeah.
and it was such a beautiful mirror because I was in this place in that very moment of do I retire all my business? Do I retire all of my core offerings that I have rolled out for 6 years every year like clockwork? I don't feel like that's what I'm meant to do. So it was kind of like in the dead of winter in my own business and trying to sort
Oh,
things out
interesting.
but like also feeling like there was this aliveness, this other essence that was ready to come through. And it turns out it was that. So I made the choice to retire all that. My business has never been more abundant and prosperous and more aligned. But that was a teaching for me of like trust in the creative process, trust in the divine intelligence. And so that moment with our matriarch tree was such a blessing. And that was how I started my day in my only one full spectrum journey of San Pedro. And for those listening or watching, who are interested in dosing, because I do think for many it is important. That was 22 grams. And then another time that I journeyed, it was a light journey, and I did 7 grams, and that was beautiful. I loved 7 grams. That would be what would be considered a light journey. My microdosing on a daily, almost a daily basis is 1 gram. So for anyone listening and you might want to start your journey, maybe you care about the dosing, because I do think on for me that feels important to weave in just responsibility and all those things.
Yeah.
But I'm with you 1,000%, Nick, on how many memes have we all seen where like you said that was a microdose, so everybody's going to react a little bit differently, but
Yeah.
this is why I like to layer. When I'm first working with a new medicine, like just layer and see how your body responds, and the frequency in which you're meeting this medicine.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the folks who ran the ceremony have a good sense of it's your first time, this is how much you should take type of thing, right?
Yeah, of
Um,
course. And you just might not have known that. But yeah, set and setting, facilitators, all of that matters. So again, just being a responsible adult, we all want to just like really look into who we're sitting with and where does the medicine come from, right? These
yeah,
days, I'm not
yeah,
interested in anything synthetic in my body, and my body
that's right.
loves the organic, the all natural, the pure, that cleaner of an experience. Um, yeah, there's like an honoring all the way around. Is there anything else that you want to share on San Pedro, or do you feel like now would be a good time to weave into how it brought you to your gifts and
Well,
honoring
let's,
your gifts?
I mean, I would love to share notes around the
Yes,
different types of
please. Yes,
psychedelics, right? So
yes.
like I fell in like with San Pedro, and like I said, I made a friend. Like other people are like just don't have that feeling that I have, and I feel like it's um, super helpful all the time.
Same, same.
The I haven't understood mushrooms like a lot. I didn't really get it. And that's been the cool kid. That's been the conversation a lot. And and only recently have I and I guess it's a little more experimentation. Microdose, I don't know if those are even the right words, but it's not a full sit down ceremony. But it's enough to go, oh, there's something going on here, and it's active and very different feel. Like San Pedro was, it's called the grandfather.
Mm.
This warm experience. Even if you're there's no puking, there's no puking in plant medicine. There's only purging. It just looks a whole lot like you're puking, right? So, but even when you're puking, purging, and it's not great at the time, but afterwards, there's such an appreciation for letting it go and letting it rip, and then being on the better end of it, right? So I feel like that spirit still holds true there. I mean, sometimes grandfather has to be like, shit you're doing ain't working. Do it differently, right? And that's sort of how that could show up in that experience.
Mhm.
But the mushrooms, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of guide there like San Pedro. And it feels more like emotion centric. At least that's how it was for me. Like what I would consider classify as like negative emotions, like anger or just being mad about something. They got stirred up, and I was like really sitting with the mad about things for like an hour, for like an hour, just like feel like full on feeling the mad,
Mhm.
and it was super productive. It was super productive.
Mhm.
No, I wasn't running around, yelling at things or anything. I was just like really, really feeling it. And that was helpful. It was helpful just sort of to allow the mad to be a thing.
Just sit in it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, like being mad and angry is different. Angry is like, you're reacting to things, you're a little out of control, like very reactionary. Mad is like you're stewing in or just being with your honest emotion about the thing,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? And you give it a chance to really be recognized, accept it for what it is. And at least right now, it's like I'm really okay at being mad at those things.
Mm.
Like I don't want to diminish that emotion right now. I'm really okay with being mad at that. There's a lot. It's not okay. I'm okay being mad at that,
Yeah.
right?
Just allowing for whatever needed to be felt.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're something I just wouldn't want to stay in it too long. I stayed in it for way longer than I typically would,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
it felt productive.
Yeah. So, okay. So not a ton of experience with mushrooms, only a
Yeah,
microdose, it sounds like. Okay.
probably more, but yeah, 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 yeah.
What is your other experience with medicines? What other types?
Mm, there's cacao, which is wonderful,
I love
uh,
cacao. Yeah.
so wonderful. Yeah. Um,
Powerful.
we went to this yoga retreat in Costa Rica, and the last day, the facilitator came out and she's like, "We're gonna do a cacao ceremony," and I'm looking around going. Does anyone else know what's going on right now? I'm not sure if anyone else knows. But there was definitely a little ceremony going on. It was super cool.
Yeah,
It was
cacao
super
is
cool.
so powerful. What other medicines have you sat with? Just high level.
That's about it. No ayahuasca. I haven't done it.
Hmm.
I would like to. I'd like to experience it. I
Yeah.
don't feel drawn to it like I do San Pedro. Like I want to experience it. Like it feels like a vacation to me. Like I want to go there. I don't want to live there, you know?
Yeah, I have sat with ayahuasca 6 times and I feel complete in this life. Like, and that was actually the pen in my integration. The last time I sat with her, grandmother, and it was such a stark contrast from 3 years earlier and how she would need to teach me and the
Yeah.
consciousness and the quality of it was I used to learn through hard and it was fiery and just harsh. And then 3 years later, it was soft, it was gentle, it was sweet, it was loving. It was always loving, but the energetics were like soft pink rose petals being just actually caressed on my cheek and then integrated into my heart. So it was very different, but as I was integrating in that one from the spring of 2022, it felt like the pen wrote for me. And basically it was ayahuasca and her saying, you don't need to sit with me again or you, until or if you are called again in this life.
Hmm.
And I just got this message of because I had had plans like we're going to do it in October and then we're going to do it. I had plans with friends
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
was very, very disappointing for my friends at that time to get that memo from me of like, I can't, I don't feel called to sit anymore.
Yeah.
And I have felt that way ever since. So it's spring of 25 and it's 3 years later, but I feel like we might be complete. But San Pedro, it is a highly underrated plant medicine in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Most people don't work with it because they feel like they need the big sort of overarching themes that they might get from LSD or even psilocybin or ayahuasca. And I don't have a ton of experience with this stuff, but San Pedro tends to be more gentle, more subtle, and that's the way I learn best these days. And so I do love, love, love San Pedro as well. But for that, let's then now weave back into how it brought you to the next door group, becoming aware of like, okay, I need to like really utilize these gifts. And so you're starting to see some responses in the next door statement, but take us to your first time working with someone who says, okay, I want to try this out. What came through for you to realize I have something here and I can help some people understand their pets more?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I asked people to fill out a form, a Google sheet, right? It's through the browser, so you can see when someone hits submit, their information just gets populated. And so as I'm having a reckoning with myself around what did I do, what did I just say, and how are people going to respond to it, as I'm seeing them responding to this thing, I'm also anxious, and I want to see, is anyone going to say yes, right? Uh, uh, and the first row fills up, and I feel the woman come through, and I'm like, this is going to work. I know it's going to work. So I talked to her animal on Wednesday. And then I debriefed with her on Friday. It was quick. It was 15, 20 minutes, something like that. And she goes, "So the reason why I wanted to talk to you was because my prior animal communicator passed and me and my friends are looking for a new one. Would you be okay if I sent you referrals?" So first one out of the gate. I mean, my question is, can I do this for someone else? Right? And the answer is yes. For the first one gave me that what I like in the exact words I needed to hear, really. Um, did it work? Yes or no? Is someone willing to send their friends to me? Absolutely. Yeah.
What
So that
was
was
that? What was that interaction? What was the communication to the
what
animal?
came through.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I remember this one correctly, there was a lot of her really not communicating with the dog around what we're doing. It
Mhm.
was because I mean, I've been guilty about it too. And I talk about my little cat like he's this little furry, four-legged thing that poops in the box and sometimes on the floor, right? Like, and he's just, it sounds so mean when I say it right now. It feels mean to even say that because it's not true. I've experienced him in very different ways. I mean, he still poops on the floor, but he's way more than that. And so with this dog, um, I just saw her driving around a lot. I'm like, you drive around a lot. And the dog never really knows where you're going. Is that right? And I frequently check in with people. Like if it's not landing, then the information's wrong. Then I'm going to move on to something else in my notes, right? But I've never had anyone go, no, that's wrong. Maybe there's a pause and they're like, oh yeah, there it is, yeah. And so she's like, I do. I think maybe she was a realtor. And I said,
She
but you
brought her
like,
dog with her.
yeah, yeah, maybe kept the
Oh.
dog in the car or something like that. I could be filling in some of the blanks with the memory here, but she definitely drove around a lot with the dog. But the dog was always like, I don't know what's going on,
Hmm.
right? And she came to me around a point of like the dog acting. This is how it always starts. The dog's acting a little weird. I'm like, the dog's confused.
Hmm.
It'd be like if you grabbed a human and said, "Come into the car," and they asked where we're going. You just didn't tell them. You just went shopping, and then you stopped, for food. Then you went to Macy's, and then you went to Trader Joe's, and then you went to the beach for a little bit. And like it would have been nice if I knew the plan,
Hmm.
right? And so um, the conversation was healthy, it was productive, and she's like, "All right, thanks." Right? And like I'll be, which is fun. People go, "All right, I will be more aware of talking to the dog, like the dog understands." Yeah, yeah.
What is your biggest takeaway in working with all the people that you have ever since? And when did this start for you, where you started helping others understand their pets and creating a more harmonic life in the household?
Yeah, about two Januaries ago.
Okay.
So
Okay. So it's still fairly fresh.
somewhat new, yeah, still.
And so, what would you say for so many listening that have fur babies, including myself?
Yeah.
What are the maybe two or three overarching themes of if this is happening, it's classically because of that, and here's what you can do?
I can't give that one a good answer because it's so different. It's very plant. It's a very plant medicine type of conversation. Well, what does this
Uh-huh.
plant do? This. What's it going to do for you? You got to find out,
Hmm.
right? So, here's how I equate this to people who are in the plant medicine community: is well, why do because there's this conversation, you probably heard of it, like, and it's like talking to the consciousness of the cactus. It's like talking to the consciousness of the mushroom. I'm like, well, why is it only that mushroom? Why is it only that cactus? That doesn't seem to make any sense, does it? Like only those very specific things
Hmm.
in those bigger categories, that one type of cactus, that one type of mushroom,
Hmm.
that feel right to you? It doesn't feel right to me. So what if all the mushrooms potentially have consciousness? What if all the cactus? What if all the trees? What if
Hmm.
all the bushes? What if all the flowers? What if all the animals? Right? And then what would they have to say? It would be from their perspective, not from ours. Right? Just like like I look at the little cat and I'm like, poops in the box, and that's my view of the cat. It's wrong. It's just fundamentally wrong. And I just missed how he showed up
Yeah.
the first time my little cat showed up. Like he showed up with like through meditation. He showed up in this big, bright ball of light, the type you would associate with like spirit guides or angels or a higher level being. And I'm like, my cat shits in a box. He's not a higher level being. This isn't working. Right? Wrong. No, that was his introduction to me. And I
Mhm.
totally said it. That's not true.
Mhm.
Right? But from the perspective of what's the theme, if we can give it all a theme, the same way we give San Pedro a theme or psychedelics a theme, is they're here available, willing to help us,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
I had a client on Friday, and her question was, if I get a new couch, will the cat pee on that one too?
Hmm.
Right? And so I talked to the cat, and I'm like, so she wants to know if you're going to pee on the couch again if she gets a new one. And the cat's like, not me. And I'm like, not me. Like, you're not the one peeing on the couch? But I'm like, but you are. But he's like, not me. And we're not disagreeing that he's not physically peeing on the couch. I'm like, well, so I don't know what that is. Let's put that over here. And as I look at I never know what's happening. I never know. It's so strange. Like these random notes, right? And so one of my random note as I'm talking to this young lady is move forward, comma glass. And I'm like, so here's the next line. I'm going through the notes. Move forward, glass. And now the conversation starts to come alive because this is how it always works, typically. I'm here for a behavioral problem. Oh, we're now talking about me,
Mm.
right? It's always that. But my cat with the behavior, my cat peeing on the couch, not about that. So when he's like, not me, that's exactly what he was talking about.
Hmm.
So we're talking about that glass couch. And she goes, you know what?
The
I had a
glass
relate
couch?
I'm sorry, a glass table. Glass
Okay.
table. I'm
Okay.
talking about a glass table because the note was move forward glass, right? So we're
Hmm.
talking about a glass table. She goes, well, I was in a relationship about a year ago, and the couch, I hardly ever sat on it. My ex-partner sat on it a lot, but I never really did. I'm like, and that was the couch that your cat's peeing on that you got rid of? Oh, that's interesting, right? So how does your cat feel about this partner? I think we know, right?
Hmm.
And she said, and I've been meaning to get rid of this glass table. I just haven't. We bought it together. Okay, so let's talk about this. So you want to know if the cat's going to pee on the couch again. The cat was peeing on this person, right? Basically, in spirit. And and the cat told me move forward, glass. And now you have this glass table that you've been meaning to get rid of and haven't. I can't guarantee you one way or the other if the cat's going to pee on the couch, but I would highly recommend you get
Yes.
rid of that glass table before
Yes.
you do get a couch,
Yes. I love
right?
it. So
Get
good.
cut the ties, the emotional and energetic ties with this human being once and for all. I was like, throw away the pictures, throw away all the things. If you have one thing and you can feel okay about it because you want to remember the good times in 2 years,
Hmm.
it's up to you.
Hmm.
But but don't make a mistake about you throwing away most of the things, and we all get to look at this glass table, and we're
Hmm.
still tied to that person. Got to get rid of that shit.
Yeah, it's so true. My gosh. And the animals are so sensitive. And I have three, so it's like we are a full-on family. We are a unit. And I did not treat it that way actually until about 2 years ago. But now I'm very well aware of how just much of a family we are, but yet how each one of them has to be respected for their individuality and their own unique connection with me. They need their
That's right.
own, right, their own bond with me that has nothing to do with the others. And they all seek it out or demand it when I'm not noticing. And it's really cool to cultivate those now. And then also to recognize when everyone's at peace and we're all just one little family, and when everyone's like, okay, all my needs are met, we can all just, co-regulate together on the bed or on the couch or wherever. And it's been a beautiful journey. I see my sister pointed this out to me, and I'd be curious to get your take on this just from
Yeah.
high level without details. But she says to me, because I have a 15-year-old cat, 13-year-old cat, and then a near 8-year-old dog. And she says that they represent, in her opinion, my evolution, my
Oh, say more.
personal, yeah,
Yeah,
my
say more.
personal evolution. She was like, Pip is this way, Leo is this way, and then Samson's that way, but that's your own evolution because we all have a preference of like it just got better and better and better, you know? And so I'm just curious if you've noticed any of those types of commonalities with your clients.
I haven't, but that's a wonderful way to look at it.
Mm.
I've never had that show up um, remotely close to that.
Well,
But I,
interesting. Who's to say that that's actually what happened, but it does feel right. But then it was also like, oh, I don't want to leave Pip where I found her, right? Just not as connected, not as centered, not as steady, not as like rooted in her being, right? She was
yeah,
found in a gar in a in a dumpster, left to
yeah,
die. She was 7 weeks old, probably, maybe not even that. She weighed like not even a pound. And and so she was rescued and I brought her home. And so she was like almost feral, but all she wanted was me, you know? And so when I was able to recognize about 2 years ago, and it was actually almost 3 years ago now, I had to go through this full-on Ho'oponopono prayer with my older cat of like, I'm so sorry, please forgive me, thank
mm,
you, I love you. Like, and I meant it. And it was just this moment one night, I'll never forget it. And it was just I was just telling her I'm sorry for all the years I didn't fully see her and honor her and respect her. And I'm telling you, that moment shifted everything. And so she's softening, she's relaxing, she's letting me pick her up and just like putty in my arms,
yeah,
she's communicating with me differently. But all of that shifted. And so while it may be true that there was this evolutionary arc, I didn't want to just leave her where I found her. It was like, okay, well, if I've grown, then how do I go back and attend to her?
yeah, yeah. So I mean, even just hearing you now, Michelle, it's like different different teachers at different times,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then as you're talking, there's a whole lot of meet the being where they are showing up, right?
Yeah.
You may have moved on, so great, but I'm still here, right?
Yes.
So don't talk to me about talking to God. Like I can't eat. You know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like help me get a minimum wage job.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why these examples are coming up, but like you got to meet someone where they are, where regardless of where you feel like you are, it's just it may not be relevant to them. So
Yeah.
there seems to be some of that showing up.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, at the end of the day, it's also basal. It's pretty basic stuff, of just really just connecting, sincerely and authentically.
It is, when Adelita, who's the medium psychic medium, said you're going to talk to animals going to be easy for you. My reaction, among other things, was yeah, that's totally true, and I have no reason for to think that. And then I made it difficult. I made it really hard for myself because it can't be that easy, right? Like it just can't be.
Mhm.
Dismissing the cat showing up, putting blocks intentionally in front of me. And I went to her after Chucky showed up, and the living cat Chucky, and then I dismissed him, and I was like, it's not working. And I told her that, and she's like, you're expecting things to show up in very specific ways, and that's not how this works. You got to be the open channel and get what you get.
Mhm.
And it's like it really is like anything else. If you don't have the fundamentals,
Mhm.
and the fundamentals are what it's all about, right? Like you can get fancy, but you can do a lot with the fundamentals, right? Like most of it's right there. So the idea that it has to be hard or complicated, it's as hard as complicated as it is to get yourself out of the way.
Mhm. Yeah.
And once you can get yourself out of the way, it is easy. And
Mhm.
and and I don't know if everyone can talk to animals. I have no idea, no clue. But when I'm working with someone to work with them on developing their intuition, a lot of strange things shows up. It is a form of that medicine. It's all the same thing to me.
Yeah.
The plant medicine and the meditations, all the same thing. The big difference is the medicine is a direct line, right? You're mainlining energy. You're just going right into it. And the
Mhm.
meditation, there's a commitment, right? So like if you want to be a bodybuilder, you want to do the steroids and get enormous in 6 months, you can do that, plant medicine, right?
Mhm.
That's an unfair comparison. However, the better way to build your body is to go to the gym, get a trainer, get that gym membership, go there every day at 7 o'clock. Thank that member, that trainer, for their time. Tell them you're going to be there tomorrow, and do that consistently. It's a commitment, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's how you get the results. You can dive into the pool of the plant medicine, but there's no integration there. So
Mhm.
for me, the integration was with the meditation. And if I fall off the meditation practice, I can't connect as well as I can, right? So it's a daily practice to stay on that meditation, whether it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes. That's typically what I do. And those are training days. And then the days that I talk to the animals, those are the game days for me, right? But how it shows up for someone else, who knows? And that's the excitement of it, right? Like do the
Mhm.
meditate. If you can find a meditation practice, there's so much that can come from it. You just have to be consistent and be committed to it. The commonality of anyone who can talk to spirit without being on a plant medicine is meditation. So
Yes.
people think they can't do it. No, you're just not meditating. And that's overly simplistic. Like there's better ways to do it than not. But people get a sense. Here's the big benefit of plant medicine for me was I was immediately shown what was possible in terms of connecting,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Now the trick is, can you go do that yourself? Right?
Yeah.
Some version of that yourself.
Hmm.
And that's where the meditation comes in, is you're doing the reps, you're running the miles, you're doing the work
Gotcha. Yes.
with the
Yes. I'm
meditation.
tracking. Yes. And I'm fully
That's
with you. Yes.
all right. That's the integration part, or else we're just jumping in, having a good time. And again, I'm being a little harsh with the experience because I've seen some people going, but it's awesome. I'm a better person. You're not. You had a great experience. The work has just begun, right? It's
Yeah.
like marriage, right? I love you. I'm going to spend the rest of my days with you. This is awesome. I said I do. You just signed up for a shit ton of work,
Hmm.
right? You're going to get to know yourself in ways you never even imagined.
Right. And then you're connecting that to the fundamentals of authentically connecting with an animal because it's like the reps at a
That's
gym,
right.
meditation. Yeah.
So the commitment to the meditation for me eventually led to the animals. For someone else, it could be, who knows what it could be.
Gotcha. Okay.
But your direct connection can open up things for you. However, it may open up, may be predictable or the opposite. It was not predictable for me.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, I would, I resonate with that because the reason why I was able to connect more deeply with my cats, because the dog, it's just been more natural. But with the cats, it became after I started to turn inward, and to spend time communing with my divine being and with, just yeah, who I am outside of the vessel. This has been such an enlightening conversation. For those who are curious about your work, where is the best place to reach you?
Yeah, you can go to mycatschooledme.com. It was available. And
Awesome.
it's true, right? They're all teachers, and mine certainly was. Instagram also the same handle. I've been threatening lately. I've been threatening myself for a year to actually make videos, and yesterday I actually did and published it. So great.
Good for
So
you.
yeah. So there'll be more of those and sharing little stories
Yeah.
of what the animals have to share with me for other folks to give
Okay,
folks an
cool.
idea of what it could look like. Yeah.
Okay, good. And then I know that you offer up, consultations and things like that. So we'll leave your information in the show notes.
Yeah.
And in our final moments together, is there anything else that you feel called to share?
I mean, the last thing I would say is everything we talked about, it's available to everyone.
Mhm.
Everyone. So whatever feels good, like go with that instinct of like, go with that instinct of whatever that thing that gets you interested in whatever the next step is. If this whole thing is, if you're hanging in here this long, something is interesting.
Yeah.
So follow whatever that next thing is, be it mushrooms, meditation, a conversation, whatever the next thing is,
Mhm.
take a step forward into it.
Yeah, beautiful. Well said. Thank you so much. Nick, thank you for your time and for sharing all the things in all the ways. It was fun. Appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Michelle.